Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all my subscribers, my members, those of you who've liked my videos, shared my videos, sent me a super, bought me a coffee, or supported my channel in any way. Thank you so much. So the big dog Tia has just got her ball and decided she wants to play because I'm starting a recording, as she does. Anyway, so I just want to give, first of all, I just want to say I've already got my candle lit this morning because I lit it earlier for another video that I did. Remember, the candle we keep lighting is for everyone who is lost, missing, people who need it. Anybody who needs a candle, who needs a prayer, who needs positive thoughts. For various reasons. So ultimately, in this case, it will be for Anna and Gracie and also Anna's unborn baby, because that's the case that we're going to deal with today. Up in the right-hand corner, you can see the Sharpe family in happier times. But also this candle is for, sometimes we can be lost, but not in a physical way, but in a psychic way, if you like. Always through our lives there are times where we get lost for whatever reason, things that are going on, struggles we're having, can be financial, can be family, can be mental health struggles, can be physical health struggles. So the candle basically is not only for people who are missing and for families that are missing their loved ones, but it's just for all of us, because we all need it, don't we? We all need positivity. So this is the series that I've been doing about family annihilators. And I just want to remind you about what family annihilators are. In the first episode, I suppose you could call it, I looked at the Todd family murders, which are these up here in the right-hand side, right-hand corner. This is Tony Todd, who murdered his whole family and the dog, Breezy. Today, we're going to look at the second case, because basically what happened, wasn't it, I decided I was going to do a video on one of these family annihilators. And then in the end, it was decided they're all important cases. These victims all need to be remembered, so I could not distinguish. And a lot of you sort of voted for all different ones. So I decided to do a series of 5 videos, taking a deeper look into these cases. And I just want to warn you now, they're all distressing, but personally for me, this one that I'm going to look at today of John Myles Sharpe was the most distressing. I think he was just so cold, callous. Anyway, when we listen to the story, you'll understand maybe why I feel like that. They're all awful. Of course they are. None of them are not awful, because anybody who kills their own children, there's nothing good in there, is there? But just something about this, I think it's the manner of which he did it as well. So brutal, so nasty. This guy really is, to me, just a nasty, horrible man. And why did he do it? Well, for all intents and purposes, he just got fed up of being married and having children. Didn't want any more children. Didn't want the child he'd got. Was holding him back. Anyway, so first of all, I just want to explain to you what is a family annihilator. We looked at this in, I'm not going to look at it in the same depth as I did in the other videos, because you can look back of them. Don't forget, so this video number 1 is on the playlist. You can look back if you don't know about this series yet and you didn't see the first case. That is on my channel. So always as well, remember, there's lots of different videos on my channel. If you get a rainy afternoon, maybe have a little binge watch through some of the cases and let me know what you think about them. Okay, so a family annihilator is nearly always, 99.9% of the time, a man. And we found that men, they normally kill always, family annihilators, always kill their children. Sometimes they don't kill their spouse or their ex-partner. And as I've said before, I think that depends on accessibility. Sometimes they can't get to the wife or the partner, but they can get to the children on the times when they're allowed access, etc. Sometimes they kill the children as a revenge against the ex-partner. So the ex-partner or partner who's trying to break up with them normally has to live without the children. And that is the biggest revenge that you could do on someone, isn't it? You know, someone who you knew loved their children, you take the children away. You know, how can that person but leave them alive? That's even worse in a way, because then the rest of their lives they've got to live with the fact that their children have been murdered by their own father. It's normally the biological father, normally. But quite often they take the whole family. So they take their spouse, the children, or their partner. And it's like there's many, we looked in the last episode of the Todd family murders. We talked at the beginning about what some psychologists have said are the reasons why men do this, you know, and there are various, you know. So go and have a look at the Todd family murders for the reasons, which can range from sort of financial to just not wanting the responsibility anymore, not being able to live up to expectations, having a, you know, relationship breakdown. You know, these are all the different reasons. Okay, so yeah, we're looking in this episode, episode 2, we are looking at John Myles Sharpe. The Mornington monster is quite often referred to, because this case took place in Mornington. Let me just try to put it. It's not coming up for some reason. Why is that? Anyway, I'm trying to put a little geography. There it is. It takes a little while. So this is where it took place. Here is Melbourne in Australia, and Mornington is. Can I make that bigger? I don't think I can. Anyway, Mornington is around this area, so it's not that far from the centre of Melbourne. It's just a bit further down here. You may be able to see it if you've got better eyesight than me. I should have made it bigger before I put it on there. I might be able to do that now, actually, and that would be better. Let's see. Oh, gosh, it's all jumping around. Yeah, I can't. It's too late for me to put it on there, but I can show you more where it is. So it is here. That's where it is in context with Melbourne. So you can imagine that this case was a big case in Australia. Some people refer to it as the Australian Chris Watts case. Of course, this was before the Chris Watts case, I think, but or maybe around about the same time. Let's look at the time. So it was 2004. It was a double murder in 2004. It was actually a treble murder because John's wife was pregnant. And this is probably what sparked his actions, because he didn't want another baby. He didn't even want, so here they are all together. So this is Anna, this is Gracie, she was their daughter, and this is John the Twonk. I was like, oh, I just hate this man. So, you know, literally, I mean, they're all horrible, these men that do these things. I can't even look at this man. You know, he's just a revolting man. Anyway, here's a couple of pictures of Anna with Gracie, just to have a look at. So, because we need to concentrate on them more, you know, he can be forgotten, but it's them that need to be remembered, isn't it? That's who we want to remember. We want to remember Anna and Gracie and the unborn baby. You know, we don't give a shit about John, basically, excuse my French. So we're going to look at, sorry, I just find it very distressing, you know. So we're going to look at how they met, first of all. Sort of a little bit of the background about this case. I think I may have a wedding photo to show you there somewhere. Definitely downloaded a picture of their wedding. Okay, never mind. I could show it you on here instead. So this was them on their wedding day. So very sad, isn't it? Now, Anna was a committed Catholic. She was a very, very religious person. She took her religion very seriously. So when she will have married John, who apparently she'd said to her friend was good marriage material, when she married him, she would have been thinking that marriage was going to last forever. You know, she wasn't a woman, you know, who was looking for other men or anything. Her whole life was her family, John and Gracie. And that makes it even worse because John did, as always, as these men do, try to cast aspersions on Anna's memory. That there should be an extra sentence for that, you know, because once somebody is gone, what these men do, they start trying to blame the woman, don't they? Anyway, so we're not sure exactly when he did it, but between March 23rd and the 27th, 2004, John Myles Sharpe did the unthinkable. By the way, I'm reading this from the True Crime 365, which is a true crime blog written by Brooke Bathory. So thank you, Brooke, for this. So John Myles Sharpe was born to shopkeepers Valerie and Myles Sharpe. The couple raised their son. Now, I want to say about his parents as well. They completely believed him. When Anna first went missing, and, you know, no, because it was 2 months before they found Anna, found out what had happened to her and Gracie. So when John was making his appeals to the public, etc., his parents were so supportive of him. You know, well, you would be, wouldn't you? They didn't think that he'd done anything wrong. Anyway, they raised their son in the semi-rural town of Mornington in the state of Victoria, along with their 4 older daughters. And they later welcomed another boy into the family. So apparently, according to this blog, his early life was mostly unremarkable. He had social issues. He relied heavily on his parents. He was said to have a low emotional intelligence and lacked the ability to handle stressors in his life. He completed year 12, however, he did not pass his exams. But apart from his lack of emotional intelligence and his reluctance to face his own problems, there was no indication of what was to come. So he left behind an average school experience, acquired a job at a state bank and went to work at Commonwealth Bank. That's where he met Anna, who was actually from New Zealand. She was 31 at the time. She was 4 years older than him. Now, she would have been looking to get married then, have children. I've known people, you know, they feel like their time is running out. And unfortunately, perhaps they make bad choices then. But anyway, you can make bad choices. You can be too young, you know, you just don't know you're making a bad choice at the time, do you? In October 1994, they got married, and 8 years later, so Anna was 40 then, was she? So 31 October 1994. So yeah, so Anna was not exactly an old mum, but an older mum, because they didn't have Gracie until August 2002. Now, this is where their problems really started, I think. I think they were on opposite, Anna wanted a child. Did John even want Gracie? Did he even want a child in the first place? We don't know. Maybe he didn't really, because he seemed to find looking after Gracie irritating, because Gracie had a rough start to life. She was born with hip dysplasia, and she needed a brace to keep her joints in place throughout the first few months of her life. And so apparently as an infant, she was unsettled, uncomfortable, and had difficulty sleeping. Now, all of us that have had children know that it's not all sweetness and light having children, So if it wasn't for hormones, I wonder if anyone would have any children, because it is hard work. There's lovely things about having children and the love that you get, and they are like your world, aren't they? But there are the sleepless nights, and there are times when you do feel stressed, etc. And if you're in a couple, that can put strain on your relationship. I think sometimes I was lucky being a single parent, because I didn't have any conflict, with somebody else. And so many people think children will make their relationship, but quite often it's children that break their relationship, isn't it? The stress of looking after them, etc. So this stress began to strain this relationship between the now Mrs. Anna Sharpe and her husband, John. And even after the braces were removed, Gracie still struggled with her sleeping. And that's my dog making noises, sound effects. And Anna so even to the point where Anna sought out professional assistance and used to go to respite. She went to respite on 3 occasions with Gracie to try and help establish sleeping patterns and alleviate Anna's anxiety. Anyway, this is where they lived, 116 Prince Street, Mornington, Victoria, Australia. Now, is this I thought it might be a photo she put in there, but this is like a notorious place now in Australia. We know in the UK you've got, those of you who've seen the film 10 Rillington Place, that's a place, that will always be notorious. I think it's 43 Cromwell Street, where the Wests lived. These places where terrible crimes happen, quite often we do remember. There's the caretaker's cottage in Soham, where the 2 girls, Holly and Jessica, were killed by Ian Huntley. These places quite often, I don't think it has happened in this case, but in the UK quite often they demolish these buildings, don't they? Well, look at the Idaho, the place where the Idaho 4 were murdered in America. That's been demolished now. Sometimes these places that are notorious are better off, to be forgotten, if you like, to be bulldozed down. And let me know what you think about that in comments, because I can't decide, because I looked, and this, as far as I know, this house is still on there. I found it on some real estate pages, etc. But or do you think these places where terrible acts happen, do you think that they should be demolished? Anyway, shortly after they moved into their new home on Prince Street, Anna let John know about her second pregnancy. She was probably over the moon, maybe, hoping he would be over the moon too, but he wasn't. So there you go. Anyway, the next year, it can't be the next year. Can't be the next year after. Sorry, it just can't be, because if she's just surprised John with the news of her second pregnancy, she would have had the baby by then. So it can't be the following year. It's got to be the same year. So on the evening of March the 19th, a female friend of Anna's had stayed the night in their new home. She felt there was nothing out of place between the couple, and despite the stress of the previous years, they seemed happy. So I presume this is the following year after they moved in to Victoria, to the new address in September 2003. Yeah. So then this was the following year, 2004. So apparently that Tuesday evening, the couple fought, although it's unclear what about. Because, you know, these twonks that can never remember what about, can they? They'll be saying, oh, I don't really remember what we argued about. He knows what they argued about. Anyway, between 9 and... This is John's version, of course, of what happened, so we can't forget this. We don't have Anna to ask what happened. We only have John's version of what happened. So between 9 and 10, Anna went to sleep where her husband did not. He stayed up, wallowing in what he regarded as an unhappy marriage, and he made the choice to retrieve his spear gun, which he had bought previous to them even moving into this home, from the garage. Now, I think we've just got to think, why did he have a spear gun? Now, I just want to show you, you know, this is the sort of thing we're talking about. This is not the actual spear gun, I want to make clear. This is just one that I've sort of found on the internet, just to give you an idea of what a spear gun looks like. And I think for me, that is, you know, the reason why this case is just so awful for me, is because of the way that this monster, Mornington monster, it suits him, that name. He is a monster. This monster used this to murder his pregnant wife and his 20-month-old toddler. You know, you have to let that sink in for a minute. And I just want to warn you as I start to tell you what happened. Obviously, never, as always, never go into gory details. But, you know, these details are gory even if you try and skate over them. It's horrible. It's so horrible. So I'm just warning you of that. If you are sensitive, please don't watch it, because it may upset you. Jump ahead a little bit. And just while I just explain what he did. So yeah, why did he have a spear gun? You know, there's absolutely no reason for him to have a spear gun. He'd never expressed any interest in spearfishing or any other sport that would require it. He purchased 2 spears. So bearing in mind, this is before he moved into this house in Victoria, in Mornington, 116 Prince Street. So he was already planning, probably. Why did he buy 2 spears? One for Anna, one for Gracie. He knew he was going to do it. He was planning it, thinking about it long before, in my opinion. He used cash to buy it, left no paper trail. And so for that reason, it's not known when the exact date of the purchases was, but it's confirmed that it was in his possession on February the 6th, 2004. So this is his account of what happened. As his wife slept, he loaded the spear gun and returned to their bedroom. He positioned the gun only centimetres from her left temple and fired it into her skull. Can you imagine doing that? I mean, anyway, it did not kill her. It did not stop her breathing. She was still breathing. So he took the second spear and fired it close to the first one. He then covered her in towels so he didn't have to face the body. He went downstairs, unfolded the sofa bed where he spent the night. So he did it. It may have taken her quite a while to die. Then the next morning, he got up as if nothing had happened, and he got their daughter, Gracie, 20-month-old Gracie, took her to the childcare unit as normal. where did he tell Gracie where her mum was? And then you think, all the time he knew what he was going to do to Gracie. Anyway, he took her to the nursery, and then he came back and got her just as normal. And at some point, a TV repairman came to the home, and Anna's body was still in bed upstairs. After the repairman left, he made an attempt to remove the spears. You know why he tried to do that? Because he wanted to use those on Gracie. So he couldn't do it. So he decided to unscrew the shafts, and he left the spearheads. He left the spearheads inside Anna's skull. He then dug a shallow grave in their backyard and buried her in the dirt. So then the deception began. Yeah, it certainly did. So what he did then, he concocted an elaborate tale of his wife leaving him for another man. So again, this is like the double deviance that he's done. It's bad enough he's murdered his wife. Now he's going to say that she's left him for another man and left her daughter there. This is what he was first going to say. So, and this is what he said to Anna's mum. This is what he told Anna's mum when she's, obviously inquiring about her. Stop it. When she was inquiring about her daughter, that's what he said, that she'd left him for another man. Just, it's foul, isn't it? And he said so he was obviously planning to murder Gracie then, because he said to the mum-in-law he expected Anna to come back on Sunday to pick up baby Grace. That's chilling, isn't it? To me, that's absolutely chilling. So I think what he was thinking was by Sunday he will have killed Grace as well. And then he's just going to tell the mum that she's gone off with another man. She's taken Grace with her. Anyway. So what did he do then? He put Gracie into her cot and he started to down multiple glasses of whiskey and coke. Now, as we're saying this, I'm going to put a picture up. I'm going to put the picture up of Gracie and Anna, because I want us to think about this is the sort of man he is. So he's already murdered Anna. He's planning to murder Gracie, and he's planning to say that Anna's gone off with another man and taken Gracie with her. This is what he's planning to do. So to get Dutch courage for it, he starts to drink whiskey and coke. And once he's drunk, he makes his way to the garage. He loads his spear gun with a newly bought spear, as of course the other two spearheads are still in Anna's head and buried in the backyard with his wife. He then approached Gracie's cot and aimed the weapon at his baby's head. So the first shot penetrated Gracie's skull but did not kill her, as she screamed in agony. Right, I'm sorry, this is upsetting, but this is what happened. She screamed in agony as the spear was lodged in her head. He panicked and retrieved the two metal shafts he had fired into his wife. Now, how long did that take him? Because if they were buried in the back garden, where did he get them from? Anyway, he then loaded the spear gun with the headless spears and shot Gracie twice. Oh, that's right, because the points were in his wife. He had the shafts. Oh, so he then got the shafts. Yeah. Oh, nice. So they won't even be sharp. And he shot Gracie twice. These two also failed to kill the 20-month-old little girl. So you know what he did then? He took one of those out of her skull and fired the final fatal shot. So little Gracie, his daughter, that little girl that you can see there on that picture, this little girl, she suffered 4 shots to her head, wasn't it? So it was the first one that he'd bought, the spear that he'd bought, the 2 shafts that didn't have a point on the end of them, and then one that he took out and then shot again to her. So she suffered 4 different shots from a spear gun. Before she died, that little angel. I hope her and her mum are together now. I really, really hope that. And this guy is going straight to hell. Anyway, he later admitted he knew that at the moment of murdering his wife that his daughter would have to be murdered too. He even took Gracie with him to the sporting goods store to purchase more spears. So the next day, Sharpe covered his face with a towel as he could not bear to look at the face of his slain daughter, and he retrieved the spears from Gracie's head. He then wrapped her in garbage bags, secured the body with duct tape, and disposed of his baby girl at a dump, along with some of her toys and the weapons used to end her life. So the story is concocted is that his wife has left him, taken Gracie with her for another man. Now, we're going to look now at his interview, because he did like a press appeal. And there was obviously, there's been many documentaries made about this case. And I want to watch this video. They may do me for copyright for this, but anyway, it doesn't matter. There was a documentary made. I don't know if you've ever seen these documentaries where people examine body language, etc. And this guy, he's a body language expert, and he's pointing out, he did a documentary pointing out the suspicious things about his press interview. And it was presented in a documentary. So this is just a little snippet of it.
I just want to ask Anna, or anyone that knows where she is, or just anything about just my daughter.
So this is a very, very poor attempt at portraying concern and sadness. And therefore, we've got to doubt the integrity of this.
So I just want to say, if you've ever seen Faking It, it's called the series. I've seen a few episodes of it. It's very good. It's very good. You know, the thing about body language, though, for me is, of course, you can only ever see it in hindsight. You know, like these sort of programs. You know, now we know he was lying. It's difficult, I think, in the first instance. You know, body language is not a science. Nobody's, you know, you can be they call them an expert in it and that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it is an opinion. And these sort of programs, much as I do enjoy watching them, of course, by now we know he is the murderer. So looking back with hindsight is always easier than looking at the actual moment itself that it's happening. But it's still very interesting. So it's Faking It.
Message. First, we get this prolonged eye blink. It's a good part of a second, half a second, just a little bit more. And this is a distancing signal that whatever I'm saying right now, I'm not connecting with. And then he moves into some squirming with his brows, where he's got one brow coming down. You look at his left brow is pointing up in the middle, almost like sadness. And then on his right, we've got the other brow going up. So we've got this little juggling going on between his brows, which is highly unusual. And he's squirming and trying to form his upper face, probably into a sad pose. And then when we look at the face overall, the squirming is accompanied not just in the eyes, but in the mouth, where we get the mouth raising and almost like a moving up of the lips into a growl.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd look at this and I just think straight away, I would think, oh, yeah, he's lying. But am I just thinking that because I know now he was lying? But he doesn't come over as genuine. But, of course, and for me, I was watching a video yesterday about the Soham murders, because I will be doing a video about that soon. Holly and Jessica, Ian Huntley, and their parents, oh my God, they were blasted with grief. You can tell when you look at someone, oh my God, the faces of those parents, I could cry just thinking about it. The emotion there, blasted. That to me is the word that fits when people are truly grieving. It's like this, the face is blasted with it. And of course, I would look at him and I think, well, where's the grief? No tears. And, to be honest, a couple of times with interviews with Holly and Jessica's parents, they didn't always cry, but their eyes were red. Like you could tell, they had been crying and they were like just haunted, completely haunted. Obviously, just look at this guy's just thinking, oh, just get this press conference over and then I can just get my tea and get on with my life. You can see there's nothing really there. No tears, no nothing.
Now, normally that would signify anger or disgust, but that's not supported by the eyebrows. So he's making contortions of muscles on his face to try and portray some form of concern, and it's not working.
One of the things that John Sharpe says is to communicate to us that he's really worried about his daughter, and we should pay attention to how he does this. There's audible breathing, so he's breathing from the chest, all of which suggest extreme stress. If you like, he's in an arousal state. This is flight, fright, or freeze. And unfortunately for him, he's in front of a camera, and we're picking all of this up. And what we see at this point is that he's singling out his daughter for a reason.
That's what I'm really worried about, my daughter.
Why is he not saying, I'm really worried about my daughter and my wife? So the narrative here seems to be that she's just gone somewhere, not that something sinister has happened to her. In which case, why is he worried about his daughter then?
Well, I just want to ask Anna or anyone that knows where she is, or just anything about just my daughter.
So this is a very, very poor.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, he is going to be. It didn't, and it didn't come over that it had. He would be worried about his daughter. If Anna had gone off with another man, of course he'd be worried about his daughter because, the thought of his daughter being brought up by another man, maybe. But of course, that was all a load of rubbish anyway. But maybe he's really worried about, maybe that worries him the most, maybe killing Anna and, of course, her unborn baby. So, we mustn't forget that Anna was pregnant. So he killed two people when he killed Anna. He killed Anna and here's another pregnant woman murdered by her partner. How often does this happen? Once you start looking at these true crime things, so many pregnant women murdered. I would never even, if somebody would have said to me before I started following true crime, oh, there's lots of, pregnant women are murdered, I'd be thinking no, because you just cannot get your head around that, can you? Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. The article, that little clip from the body language thing. So this is where we were. He's making an appeal because people are starting to suspect him. The police are happy for him to do an appeal. His family supported him completely. But the police start watching him. He doesn't know he is being surveilled by the police. Let me put a different picture up while I just read you the rest of this article. So the police are surveilling him, and then they caught him doing something unusual. He drove down to Chelsea Beach, where apparently he was constantly looking over his shoulder to make sure no one was watching. He went to a specific bush by the shore and he pulled out a white plastic bag. He took it back to his car. He pulled a phone out from the plastic bag and made a call with it. Then he drove to the nearest ATM and withdrew some cash. He then put everything back in the bag and reburied it under the bush by the beach. Well, he's another one of these, not exactly like, the cleverest stick, the sharpest tack in the box or whatever, the light's on, nobody's in. Because if he must have thought he was above suspicion or something, he didn't realise the police were following him. So these suspicious acts were all caught on camera by the surveillance team. He then proceeded to drive home, call the missing persons unit, claiming that his wife had just rung him, and he withdrew cash from their joint account. So that was her phone that was in that bag, and he made a phone call to himself. Anyway, obviously the surveillance team knew better. So this was a breakthrough in the case because this confirmed that he was guilty of killing his pregnant wife. But this led to the investigative team realizing with dread that it meant he must have also killed Gracie. Because the thing is, if he said that Gracie was going off with Anna and she hadn't gone off with Anna, then patently, where is Gracie? So if Anna's dead, then Gracie's going to be dead too. So the timing of bringing Sharpe in for questioning became a toss-up of priority. They did have enough for an arrest, but did they have enough to charge and convict him? And also, of course, they wanted the bodies. So this was a difficult decision for the police, when to arrest him. They were always going to arrest him, but it's like, what was the right time for their case? Because I suppose the police have always got to think it ahead as of what will, their case. I mean, they could have arrested him and then started to work on him and try and find the bodies that way. That's what they've always got to, think about. Anyway, several days later, he hadn't done anything else, like gone back to the carrier bag or whatever. So they decided to arrest him and they took him back to the missing persons unit. So this reminds me of Samantha Murphy a bit, because that's, even though they hadn't found Samantha's remains, they decided, didn't they, to arrest the twonk, Patrick Stevenson, because they felt they had enough for a criminal charge against him and they just didn't want to leave him any longer. I firmly believe that some of those searches and some of those things the police were saying early days with Samantha, once they decided to treat it as suspicious, were designed to try and put the wind up Patrick or anyone who might know anything. And in the end, they decided to arrest him because, probably a few days had gone by, they still hadn't found her, and they're just like, oh, look, we just need to arrest her. Maybe they'd been hoping that he would go back. When they said they were going to search areas and things, maybe they were hoping he would go back to them. Anyway, the missing persons officer, Narelle Fraser, now we're going to listen to a podcast where she's talking. She spoke to Emma Gillespie about Sharpe's mindset during his arrest. And she said, I don't think anybody would know about how John felt about anything. He was a closed book. He was insular. He was a loner. I don't think anybody, apart from his parents, understood how John felt about anything. He didn't show any emotion. He showed no personality. I think you could call him inept. Sounds like a psychopath, doesn't it? Sharpe refused to budge from his story during his post-arrest interview, and the detectives knew they needed to find another avenue to get through to him. So they brought in his parents, who were shown the incriminating footage of their son on Chelsea Beach, and they sent them in to talk to him. And after an hour of talking to his parents, they came out and John was finally ready to talk. Fortunately, his parents managed to talk him round. This is what I think about Patrick Stevenson. Are his parents not? I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they're pleading with him day in, day out to tell where Samantha is. But if they are, it's not working. Anyway, so Fraser explained and got emotional. It's difficult to describe, but to hear a man talk about murdering his wife who was 3 months pregnant was hard enough, but he said it with no emotion whatsoever. And we are going to listen to this podcast, because you know what he did. So let me just tell you what he said he did. So he said he practiced using the spear gun in the shed days before the murder because she was getting on his nerves. She was getting on his nerves. So he started practicing using the spear gun that he'd already bought. He was already, he knew he was, he knew he was going to do it. That was the whole point of buying the spear gun. And he practiced it. And on the night of the murder, after she went to bed, he grabbed the spear gun and shot her in the head while she slept. Now, a few days later, he exhumed her body, he cut her up with a chainsaw, he put her into a rubbish bag, and he threw her out with the household rubbish. So this lady who was interviewing him said, this is his wife that's pregnant. I just kept thinking what was coming next, and then he told us about little Gracie. It's the most difficult interview I have ever listened to. I remember at one stage there was a break in the interview. I went to the ladies' toilets. There were other ladies in there, and I just put my head in my hands. I could not listen anymore. So Sharpe admitted that a number of days after killing killing Anna, Sharpe admitted he started thinking Gracie needed to be with her mum. This is something he said later when he was asked why did he kill Gracie. He said, because children should be with their mums. So, yeah. And as we know, what he did was he got drunk, went and did what he did to Gracie. So when this officer was asked, what was he like as he detailed these events? She said that his confession was like saying what he'd had for breakfast that morning. Anyway, the rubbish bags were tracked to the site in Tuerong, and thanks to some impeccable bookkeeping, the management at the site was able to specify the 100 square meters that they believed the bodies would be found in. And this saved the team a lot of time and labour. So this lady has never forgotten what it was like to find Anna's body. I've thought about it since, and I know it sounds bizarre, but I almost feel like Anna was reaching out to me. She said, I was determined to make sure that Anna wouldn't end her life in this smelly, disgusting, ratty tip. I just knew I would find her, and you know what? I did. Well done. Well, so brilliant that we found her. She confessed that the elation they felt at the discovery was quickly dampened by the realization that Gracie must be close by. I put my head in my hands and I just cried. I cried for what Anna had endured, for Anna's family, for humanity as a whole. But the thought of Gracie nearby. Anyway, the search efforts were renewed, and a couple of days later, while walking back to an on-site caravan, the wind blew a photo of Anna to the feet of one of the detectives, and a day later they found the body of Gracie. Makes you wonder if there's some divine. I've heard things like that before on true crime things when they've been searching for bodies, just a ray of sun has come through the trees and lit on the skull, or they've just had a feeling, and they as if these people are talking to them, because we talk about psychics and that, police, cops, they've got, they call it a hunch, don't they? But they get hunches, and that's only like it's a feeling, isn't it? It's a feeling that you get and you have to follow. It's an intuition. It's a gut feeling. You have to follow that, because we don't follow it. Even though I believe in that sort of things, we don't tend to follow our instincts, because we can talk them away, like logic can talk them away. Anyway, so they found her. They found Gracie, so she wasn't left in the rubbish. How could he do that? I don't know how he could do any of it. The shooting his 21-month-old daughter 4 times in the head with a spear gun, and then dumping her like rubbish, like she was just a bag of rubbish at the tip. These people, they're not normal. I mean, there is no hope for them. I'm sorry, there's no hope. So anyway, he was in 2005, he was convicted 2 consecutive terms of life imprisonment. However, his minimum sentence is 33 years. It's not a lot, is it? So 2005, 33 years. So you're talking about 2038. He'll still be alive, put it that way, unless he gets ill while he's in prison. Anyway, so we're going to listen to that podcast. And while we're listening to that podcast, I'm going to put the photos up again, rotate the photos, because there are some photos as well on this site. So that podcast where that policewoman is interviewed, we're going to listen to it.
Justice.
So I just want to give credit to Mamma Mia True Crime Conversations, hosted by Emma Gillespie. I've been on there, subscribed, like the video. Like it's a podcast, there's no video. I'm going to put some photos over so that we can listen to it, and also sort of, yes, my dog again, look at some pictures of Emma and Gracie, so that because the whole purpose of this is to remember them, and remember just what a twonk this guy is.
Her podcast, Narelle Fraser Interviews, examines the human side of the impact of crime, and she joins me now to discuss this shocking case and her role in finding out what happened to Anna and Gracie. And just a heads up before we start, this episode contains descriptions of extreme domestic violence. Listener discretion is advised. How did Anna meet?
Yes, again, I'm glad she's given that warning. I mean, you know the story by now of what this horrible man did, but there may be things that come up that may distress you, so just be aware of that.
John.
They met at the Commonwealth Bank. They were, colleagues at the bank. And I think they got together, fairly sort of quickly after meeting. Anna was from New Zealand. She'd come over from New Zealand, came from a, loving sort of mum and dad and brothers. And she came over here, met John, got married, and they moved into a place in Mornington. And then little Gracie was born. 2002, something like that.
Was it a happy marriage? What do we know about their relationship leading up to the birth of Gracie, up to the point of March 2004?
From what we learned, from John's point of view, he wasn't very happy. Apparently from Anna, things were going very well. There was no indications that John was unhappy at all. And this is from conversations with Anna's mum and Anna's family. Things were going along fine with Anna, but unbeknownst to us, John felt that she was becoming very moody, very controlling. But again, Anna had no idea. And in fact, Anna was pregnant.
Oh, so she was becoming controlling and moody, according to him. Absolutely. Oh, God.
With their second child when she was actually murdered in March 2004. And I think she was about 20 weeks, something like that. So, according to Anna, everything was fine, but John had other ideas.
What was Anna's reaction, do we know, to the news that she was pregnant for a second time compared to John's? Were there contrasting attitudes towards bringing another child into their family?
Looking back, you'd have to say yes. But at the time, Anna, well, she was thrilled with her husband that she loves. Everything's going along fine. But apparently John said to her at one stage, "Are you sure it's mine?" Like, he couldn't believe that she was pregnant. I mean, I'm not sure how you couldn't believe that your wife was pregnant.
Oh, and that was another thing, another way he blackened Anna's name, is that he said that this man she'd gone off with, he was the father of her unborn baby. That's what he said about her. Tried to blacken her name. So not only she'd left him for another man, but this other man, in fact, was the father of the unborn baby, not him, according to him. Just awful. This is why, for me, this, what with the bloody spear gun, shooting them several times, blackening Anna's name, or trying to. Nobody believed it, because Anna was a very committed Christian, very church-going, church-fearing, you name it, she was it. So nobody really believed it, but he tried to say that.
However, he was very surprised. Apparently, he was very unhappy with the second child, and maybe that was the catalyst for him doing what he ultimately did. I don't know.
Do we know much about Anna and John as parents? What was their relationship like with Gracie?
It was very, very tense, because little Gracie, when she was born, she had, I think it's referred to as hip dysplasia. And so what happened was, from virtually the moment she was born, she was put into a brace. So she had trouble sleeping, as did the parents. And hip dysplasia is not a lifelong condition. It's something with these braces or with this treatment that it can be fixed. So it was a matter of maybe, I don't know, 6 or 12 months of Gracie in and out of this brace, and she would be okay. But it caused quite a lot of tension between the marriage. And I know that was probably one of the only things that Anna had said to her mum. So I'd have to say, in those last couple of months, it was probably quite tense with little Gracie's diagnosis of her hip dysplasia.
By March 2004, we know that Anna is pregnant. She's going through with the pregnancy, but she disappears. How is the alarm raised?
The alarm is raised by her mother. Anna and her mum were very close. Her mum lives in New Zealand, and Anna would ring her mum every couple of days, or her mum would ring her, one of the two. But her mum rang her a couple of times and she didn't answer. This is in March of 2004. And she rang a couple of times, a couple of days apart, and she couldn't get on to Anna. And she was a bit concerned, and she rang John, and John said, "Oh, I don't know, she's shopping, or she's taken Gracie to Kinder," or something like that. But Anna's mum kept ringing John, saying, "John, I'm still trying to contact her. What is wrong?" And so John kept making all these excuses. And in the end, after all these phone calls back and forth between Anna's mum and John, John actually came out and said to Anna's mum, "Look, I have to tell you, she's met somebody else and she's left me, and she's living with this other man." So Anna's mum, she just knew. She had that gut feeling that something was very wrong. In this time, Anna's mum, it was her birthday, and she received this text from Anna that just didn't seem, I think we all know our loved ones, the way they write texts and the words they use and how they use them. And Anna's mum knew, just in the pit of her stomach, she knew that this text wasn't from Anna. And then she received a bunch of flowers for her birthday from Anna. And the card on the flowers, apparently the words on the card, again, there was just alarm bells everywhere. So she ended up ringing the local New Zealand police and making a report of her daughter missing. And so they did their, let's call it immediate action over there. They made a few inquiries. They rang John as well, the New Zealand police. He said the same thing to them, that she had met somebody else. They asked a few questions. He mentioned something about seeing it was a blue car or a green car down the road a couple of weeks ago, and it had picked up Anna. But he basically kept that facade, that story, with the New Zealand police. They smelled a rat. They knew something wasn't right as well. They rang the Mornington police, which is the local police station to where John and Anna lived. They rang there, and that's where the local police sprung into action, and they did what most police you would hope, and they did do. They went straight around to John's and Anna's house. John asked them in. He was very obliging. They sat at the kitchen table. He was very upset, the fact that his wife had left him for somebody else. They had a cursory look around, and they left. But apparently when they left the house, this is the Mornington police, they also smelled a rat. Isn't it funny about that gut instinct again? They just didn't feel right. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, they rang the missing persons unit where I was. They rang almost immediately. They walked out the door of John Sharpe's house to say, there's something not right here. We've just been around. So we had a look at the job, or our analyst at Missing Persons had a look at the job, just a quick cursory look, had a quick look to see if we could find anything to suggest that Anna was missing, as in phone records, banking records, all that sort of thing. And just on the initial search our analyst did, Anna was still alive and well. So our boss, obviously, at Missing Persons Unit had a look at it, and we all sort of sat around, had a quick look, had a quick discussion, a quick briefing, and our boss, you know, he picked out who was on their way down to Mornington. So I think it was actually that night or the following morning, but it was hours after Mornington had been around to John's that we actually went down to Mornington and started the investigation.
Was an affair a believable idea at the time for John to tell the loved ones of Anna that she had hightailed it out of town with some other guy? You know, what kind of a person do we know that she was? Kind of a mother, kind of a wife. Does any of that align with that idea that she might have done that?
No. I mean, certainly from an investigator's point of view, you would certainly have to factor that into, you know, like your avenues of inquiry and what could have happened. You would never, ever discount that. But, you know, from her family, I think the fact that she was, apart from a little bit of tension about Gracie's hip dysplasia.
No, do you see what I'm saying? About her, it's bad enough to murder your wife and your child, but then to go on and try and blacken her name by saying that she's gone off with another man who's actually the father of her unborn child, it just seems even worse, doesn't it? But everybody knew that that just wasn't possible.
Dysplasia. I think the family couldn't believe that she'd had an affair because she's, what is she, 20 weeks pregnant with their second child? I don't think there was anybody that believed John, but also I don't think anybody could go that next step and believe, well, if she hasn't had an affair, where is she? And that, you know, he had done what he'd done. You just couldn't fathom that. But yeah, as an investigator, completely different. We have to consider that. And I think you wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't. You have to have a very, very open mind and consider all possibilities.
Where was Gracie supposed to be at this time?
Yeah, and I do agree with that. So they'd be like, I expect people thinking, oh, well, we can't see that Anna would possibly do that, go off with another man and leave Gracie, because initially, supposedly, she left Gracie and have an affair with another man, and she was heavily pregnant. But then the next jump from that, of course, is, well, that means he must have done something to her. And I think that would be hard to believe as well, wouldn't it? I think his parents made a really good job, and it won't have been easy for them. So, you know, I need to send some prayers out to his parents as well, if they're still with us, because when they went into that police interview room after seeing that evidence that they saw, And they went into the police interview room with their son and, you know, came out and he started talking. So they did do a very, very good job, didn't they?
What was John saying about her?
John apparently had Gracie for a couple of days, and then Anna had, this is his story, that she was missing her mum and that she needed to be with her mum. So Anna had come and got her, and that Gracie was actually staying with Anna and the new boyfriend or the new partner. And John also said that they had been back to the house at Mornington a couple of times, this is Anna, and little Gracie, because Gracie didn't have a cot in her new house. And so they took Gracie's cot and a couple of other things that apparently she'd come back for. Yeah, so he had it pretty well planned.
As you've mentioned, this was a joint effort between, the alarm is raised in New Zealand where Anna's mum is, to Mornington, then to you in missing persons.
Yeah.
Was that unusual to be working across those different agencies? Did that make things harder? Was there a delay or was there a lot of cooperation in those early days?
Oh no, I could only praise the way that all the police worked together.
I mean, any time you see him crying, like on these photos where he's supposedly crying, it's like Stephen Stearns, isn't it? When he was, you know, he had a tissue and there was no tears. You know, this guy, he's like putting his hand up to his face, but there are no tears. He's wiping away invisible tears. They're not even crocodile tears. They're just not tears.
Look, when you have concerns for a little girl's safety, I'm not saying that we wouldn't do that if it was an adult, but added into that fact that there was a little girl in the middle of all this, I think that, as I've said before, it just takes it to another level. But
I notice he's still wearing his wedding ring on that picture. That's strange, isn't it?
I can only commend the way that the New Zealand police responded to the initial complaint by Anna's mum, and then Mornington. They were also very, very cooperative. And in fact, you can't work as a squad like Missing Persons Unit. You just can't work on your own. You need the people on the ground, the people in, say, in this instance, in Mornington. They know the local area. They know the local crooks. They know, I don't know, places where somebody might dump a body. Like, they have such intimate knowledge of their local area. And I know when we went down, you know, hours later after we received the information from...
They're always, I don't know if it's just me, but the Australian police always do seem more appreciative of the public than the British police are, don't they? They're, you know, they all seem to talk more highly. I don't know. Maybe I've just been poisoned by the Nicola Bulley case.
In Mornington, we were sitting down around a table and having a briefing by the Mornington police, and that included the uniform, the CI, as in the detectives, and it's all about sharing the information that you have so that, I mean, we need to find out what's happened. So the local police in Mornington did an amazing job. They were instrumental, but so were New Zealand. So I think generally, yes, you all work together.
Yeah, all work together. That's what it's all about, isn't it? But I'm just looking there again at the photo of the baby, you know, of little Gracie. And, well, I don't know how he could do it to Anna, but how he did it to that little girl, I really hope that keeps him up at night. Hope he has nightmares every night thinking about what he did to that little girl. You know, that he'll never have peace. Well, I hope not. I mean, is he really so cold so that he can just switch off from that? Just words fail me. I am completely speechless. And if DMV, if you're watching this, we need an emoji for going straight to hell. We need a fire emoji for going to hell and a fire. Because this man, if anybody deserves to go to hell, it's him.
It's very unusual not to.
You've told us that when this case came into your team that everyone smelled a rat, but the thoughts were still leaning towards Anna being alive and well. The phone is still being used. Her bank account's being used. She's sending flowers to her mother. On paper, she is alive. When did you begin to shift your focus to foul play being involved?
The minute we had the briefing from Mornington, I think we all felt there was something not right. And I don't think anyone really believed that Anna had had an affair. Although it was a possibility, it was just like Anna and Gracie had disappeared off the face of the earth. But the problem we had was that her phone was still.
There's that expression again, disappeared off the face of the earth. How many times, and we know 100%, don't we? People don't just disappear. People go somewhere. Might be buried somewhere. They might have been thrown into a river. They might have been, cut into pieces and distributed. But they are somewhere. People do not disappear off the face of the earth or into thin air. So it's just a question of, can they be found?
Still being used. Her bank account was still being used. There had been $200 taken out only, say a couple of days before. So in the back of our minds, yes, it was a possibility, but that morning at the briefing, there was just so many. So
this picture of him holding up the picture of Gracie, knowing he's put 4 spearheads, shot her 4 times with a spear gun, he's holding up a picture. Good God, that man, he should be, honestly, I hope he's being tortured.
I don't know, maybe to the trained eye, there were so many concerns and so many areas where just things weren't making sense, particularly talking to Anna's mum and just knowing Anna wouldn't have had an affair. It was a furphy, and Anna's mum knew it, and I believe we knew it, although it didn't make a difference to, us conducting the investigation. We had to go down every single rabbit hole to confirm whether or not she was actually having an affair. We had to check, had she got on a bus and gone interstate? Had she got on a plane? Had she, gone to a little B&B, had a bit of time out because things were, a bit tense at home. So I'd have to say from the minute we got the job, we thought there was something not quite right. But going down to Mornington and sitting around that table, it was like, oh my God, we're looking at a murder here.
What response is then taken? Is John monitored, placed under surveillance? What do you find out in those next critical days?
It's what we don't find out more than what we find out. We can't find any indication that Anna has got into a car. We did a door knock of the area to see if anybody had seen this blue car. Nothing. We speak to Anna's friends. There is nothing to indicate to them that she's had an affair. Like, there was just nothing. We couldn't find any indication of Anna being anywhere, but we still had that issue of her phone and her credit card being used. So one of the things you have to think about, yes, is surveillance. Is it worth putting surveillance on him? But there's no point in putting a listening device, an LD, in his house, because John was quite a loner and he didn't have very many friends that we could find. Anna had lots of girlfriends. Anna was very social, but John wasn't. So we couldn't think about putting an LD, for instance, on his phone because he hardly rang anyone. We couldn't think about putting an LD in the house because he didn't talk to anybody. So the next consideration was, well, do we put a tracker in his car?
Gosh, they couldn't put, he didn't talk to anybody, so there was no point in putting anything in his house. Gosh. It's so interesting hearing all the things that the police have to think about. Very interesting.
So we thought, well, that's better than nothing. So we put a tracker in his car, but also we decided to put what we call put the dogs on him. The dogs are a term we use for surveillance police, you know, the plain car, plain clothes, they just look like any Tom, Dick or Harry in the street. And what we decided, we put the dogs on him just to see what he was doing. We pumped up the investigation.
I love that expression, put the dogs on him. That's good. Anyway, that's what caught him.
And we started talking to John a lot and just sort of trying to get him a bit off guard, let's say, and maybe do something that he wouldn't normally do, put him under a bit of pressure. And then one of the TV stations were going to do an interview, and we thought that, you know, could help us. We don't know what he'd do after the interview. He might go and sit down by the beach and contemplate life. We didn't know what he was going to do, but it sort of coincided really well with our surveillance on him. And I've got to say, it was one of the few times that it works perfectly. It was totally unexpected, what we found. But what happened was, this was probably one of the best days of my career, was when John did the television interview. I think it was 7 or 9. They went down to John's parents' house. That's where he was staying, to get some comfort because of his missing wife. He was terribly distressed and worried about her. On the interview, I think a lot of people would have seen it where...
Oh, my God. So, oh, yeah, poor John, you know, poor John, oh, he's so terribly distressed. You know, it's so good to hear this woman and this police woman talking. You know, I'm glad it was the best day of her career and she should be proud of it. I expect she is. Because although, you know, as we know, it doesn't bring Emma or little Gracie back, but it must have felt so good to get this guy. How good must that have felt?
He's crying, those crocodile tears, holding a photo of little Gracie and pleading with Anna to contact the police or contact him. I just want to know you're safe, all that sort of carry on.
That's all I'm really worried about, my daughter. If they could just come forward and, even if you don't ring me, just the media or police or her family.
After the interview, the dogs watched him or followed him, and he left his dad's and he drove down to the Chelsea beach. He gets out of the car and he sort of looks around, seeing if anybody's around. And this is all on video. The dogs are placed so that they can watch him. And he goes to, it was a bush near some public toilets. And he goes under the bush and he fossicks around and he brings out a white plastic bag, just a shopping bag, a Coles or Woolies shopping bag or something. And he goes back to the...
I mean, what an idiot. You know, this is so nice. You know, when they think they're so clever and then they do something so stupid. Oh, God, how good that must have felt for those policemen, for the dogs.
Car, hops in the car and he gets a phone out of the bag and he makes a phone call. Obviously, at the time, we don't know who to, but he makes a phone call. He then puts the phone back in the bag and he then drives up to a Chelsea ATM, puts a credit card in the ATM, takes out a couple of $100, puts it back in the bag, gets back in the car, drives back down to the Chelsea beach with the bag. He then goes and puts it under the bush again, buries it sort of, gets back in the car and then goes back home. And what he does then is he rings our office and he says, "You're not going to believe this, but Anna's just rung me." And we know the phone call that he has made is from Anna.
God, it's like something off a film, isn't it? Or out of a book. I mean, it's so brilliant. Just so, it must have just felt so good. So he's, God, that twonk, what a twonk. So he's thinking, I know what I'll do. I'll go and get her card out and I'll go and get her phone and I'll phone myself and then I can say to them, you can just imagine him saying it, can't you, to the police? "You'll never believe what's happened. Anna's just phoned me." You know, and then he's gone and took a couple of $100 out of a cash point. I mean, that was stupid for a start because they'd realised that the cash point that the money had came out of, I presume it wasn't too far away from where they lived. You know, oh my God. And just awful to think that poor Anna and Gracie were killed by this idiot who's not even that clever.
Anna's phone, that was when we knew it is him. He's the one that's been using Anna's phone. And he also said to us, I've just had...
Yeah, because before then they didn't know for certain it was him. They suspected it, but they didn't. Now they know for certain. How fantastic.
Had $200 taken out of our account at Chelsea. And I remember that afternoon, the whole team, it was like we'd won Tats Lotto. And we sort of had, in a way. Isn't that terrible? It sounds wrong, but in one sense, we were elated. But
no, it doesn't sound wrong. God, you must have felt like cracking open the champagne, and it's like bittersweet, isn't it? Because it's, you know, obviously doesn't bring Anna back and little Gracie, but I can absolutely appreciate that sentiment. They just knew they were going to get him. They were going to get him because, you know, whatever criticism police take, the police, when they managed to put away a monster like that, they must have a bit of a celebration.
In another sense, it was a sense of dread because it confirmed to us that he had murdered Anna.
Yeah.
But then we thought, could he have murdered Gracie? And that thought was just too hard to even contemplate, to think that a father could actually murder his little girl.
Yeah, and they didn't know about the spear gun then. God. But yeah, it must be, it was such a bittersweet moment, I suppose, because yeah, that's that jubilation, that euphoria, you know, that they'd caught him. But then it's like, well, hang on a minute then, where is Gracie? Where is Gracie? Because up to then they'd always thought that Gracie was with Emma. You know, and now suddenly, sorry, Anna, not Emma. And now suddenly they know that Anna is probably dead because he's making phone calls as if that, so where is Gracie? So yeah, bittersweet.
So, I mean, it really stepped up then, obviously, the whole investigation. And what we did was for about at least a couple of days, the dogs kept on him. And this was way out of my, you know, like these were decisions that were made by, you know, an assistant commissioner in consultation with the missing persons bosses. But it was about when to arrest him.
Yeah.
Because we had enough to arrest him, but whether to charge him, we just sort of were hoping that he may lead us to the bodies, because that does happen every now and then. And so the dogs kept on him, I think, for a couple of days. And he just, you know, sat at home. So eventually he was arrested and taken back to the missing persons unit. And there was a team of, let's say, 5 or 6 of us. And the 2 men that interviewed John were 2 of the best detectives I have ever worked with, the lovely Keno and Rocky. And at the time when they interviewed John, and this was the initial interview, he'd never been interviewed by the police before. We'd only, you know, got a statement from him and questioned him. But this was a formal interview and he was under arrest. But Keno and Rocky, they had daughters of their own, the age of Gracie. Like, can you imagine being in that position? You don't know how a human being can do that.
Was John surprised that he was a suspect all along? I just want to understand a bit about him emotionally as a person. What was going on in his head that he's sort of portraying this wounded husband and father, but from the very beginning, the day that this came across your desk, he was a suspect?
I don't think anybody would know how John felt about anything. He was a closed book. He was very insular. He was, as I said, a loner. I don't think anybody, apart from maybe his parents, really understood anything about how John felt about anything. He was a very, very strange, insular man. And he didn't show any emotion. He showed no personality. I think you could call him inept.
You're listening to True Crime Conversations with me, Emma Gillespie. I'm speaking with Narelle Fraser about the murder of Anna Kemp and her daughter Gracie. Going back to that televised address, you know, so many people listening will remember watching John Sharpe on their TVs, beaming into their homes, begging for his wife to reach out. I was a kid at the time, and even I remember watching that and my parents talking about it and their own suspicions. How he presented to police during that time versus that televised address, what was it like for you watching that with your own suspicions? And from a detective, a criminal investigative perspective, what can you tell me about his body language and what that might have revealed?
He didn't show any emotion other than these crocodile tears and, you know, where is she and why hasn't she contacted me? That was the persona he portrayed the whole time. And in the interview, number one, I will never forget Rocky and Tino and how they handled themselves. But the interview took a number of turns that, not that we weren't expecting, but just to watch that interview and it roll out the way it did. There were so many twists and turns in this investigation that I'd have to say really affected me. And I know it affected others, and maybe they're not as open to admitting it as I am. But when he was interviewed, it's a bit CSI-ish, but we did have the two-way mirror. And so we could watch and listen to the interview, the other detectives who'd been involved in it. But I also remember a number of, you know, really high bosses. Like, I don't think the chief commissioner was there, but I'm pretty sure there was a couple of ACs, assistant commissioners, and definitely inspectors in the crime squads. And they came down and watched the interview. The first interview he did, he just stuck to his guns and said she'd had an affair, and we weren't getting anywhere. So there were some really big decisions made about how we were going to get him to talk, because he certainly wasn't going to talk to anyone, any police person. And decisions were made about bringing in the mum and dad and talking to him. It was a big risk to involve the parents because we could lose the whole case.
Yeah, it's interesting this, and I wonder, I mean, of course, we don't know, and we probably won't find out till, 10 years on, but it makes you wonder, have Patrick Stevenson's parents been brought in to talk to him to try and persuade him to say where Samantha Murphy is? That's something we're still waiting for bated breath for, isn't it? Will Samantha's remains be found? And I wonder if the police have, if that has happened, if his parents, there's lots of rumours his parents have left the area, but we don't know the truth. There's been speculation that maybe they were involved or helped him after. I don't know about that because we don't know. We just don't literally know. But I wonder if they've been brought in like this to help to try and get him to fess up, and let Samantha come home. So this is what worked in this case. In the end, the parents going in there, and well done to those parents, because that will have been so difficult. At the end of the day, that's their son. That was their granddaughter. Well, two of their grandchildren, because Anna was pregnant. So they lost their grandchildren. How they got him to confess, I don't know.
Because the parents were, basically trying to get John to open up as well and to help us. God love the, Victoria Police, but what they decided was we need to find where the bodies are rather than have a conviction. It's a big decision, isn't it? But it was about closure for Anna's family, because by this stage we knew, obviously it was him. And so, yeah, that was a big decision because we could lose the whole case. But finding Anna and Gracie was more important than any conviction. So we brought the parents in, and the parents were showed a little bit of the video that the dogs had taken, so that they knew that, you know, this is what we know John has done, and this is why we believe he's murdered them. And it worked beautifully.
That must have broken their heart. That literally must have broken his parents' heart. What a twonk is, you know, what he's made them suffer. They've lost their grandchild and their unborn grandchild. I think the police did exactly the right thing. And then once the parents had seen that CCTV of him, the video of him going to take those things out of the bag, they couldn't argue, can't argue with that, can you? So it must have been very hard for him, very hard.
We left him alone with his parents for, I don't know, maybe an hour. And that's when his parents came out and said he wants to talk to you. And that's when he told us everything. And it was the most heart-wrenching. It's almost difficult to describe. But to hear a man talk.
She's filling up. She's getting emotional, bless her, which he never did. How, you know, it must have been very traumatic for her, for the police in general.
Talk about murdering his wife that was 3 months pregnant. That was difficult enough. And he said this with no emotion whatsoever. What he said was, he said that with Anna, he'd been practicing with the spear gun in the shed for a couple of months, just getting up the courage because she was really giving him the shits. And this particular night, he was just fed up with it. She went to bed. He went and got the spear gun, took it upstairs. She was asleep. He shot her in the head.
Imagine, so you just go to sleep not knowing that what your husband's been doing for the past couple of days is practicing shooting a spear gun because he's going to shoot you in the head with it. He's planning on doing it. And then that day you piss him off. They went to that party, didn't they, or whatever. She's annoyed him. He's just come home and he's just thought he's probably had a few drinks. Oh my God, you know, she's really a pain in the arse, all this whinging. I can't cope with that anymore. Waits till she goes to sleep and then spear guns her in the head. Crikey.
And I think she passed away very quickly. He then buried her in the backyard. And then I think the following day or a couple of days, I'm a little bit hazy here, but at some point he dug her up and cut her up with a chainsaw, put her in.
You know, your head cannot compute this, can it? So every new thing is another layer of horribleness, isn't it? This is why, you know, I know it's not a bloody competition, but out of the 5 cases that I'm going to present to you of these family annihilations, this to me is the worst one. So then not only he's killed her, then he goes and disinters her, you know, he exhumes her, cuts her up and throws her in the rubbish. There's layer upon layer of horribleness in this case, twonkiness. You know, it just keeps getting worse. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it does get worse. So he really is the worst.
Into a bag and threw her out in the household rubbish. Like, this is his wife that's pregnant. I mean, to listen to that was difficult enough, but I kept thinking, what is coming next? And he told us about little Gracie. It's the most difficult interview I have ever listened to, because I know that there were, I don't know, let's say 10 detectives in the room listening to all this. I was holding hands with somebody that was next to me. It was so difficult to listen to. But, you know, Rocky and Keno, they just remained professional. It was just such an important part of the investigation to listen to that and try and not show any emotion. You know, like how they did that, I don't know. But I remember at one stage there was a break in this interview and I went into the ladies' toilets, and I remember with another couple of ladies, I just put my head in my hands. I just couldn't listen, but I had to listen. Oh, anyway, we went back and he told us about Gracie.
Yeah, you don't want to listen, but you've got to listen. And you've got to be, it must be so difficult. You just want to punch him in the face or something, you know. It's like, you'd just be sat looking at him and your whole being would be just wanting to bloody whack him one. You know, because of the horrible things that he's telling that he's done, and he's talking about it as if it was just like a trip to the supermarket. No, I hope she had some counselling for this.
I don't believe that he had actually thought about Gracie. I know that he had thought about what he was going to do with Anna. Like, that was well planned, because he had been to a fishing shop. He'd purchased a spear gun. He'd purchased the spears. He also bought a chainsaw. He knew what he was going to do. But I'm not sure if he'd thought about what he was going to do with Gracie. But anyway, so he's got Gracie for a couple of days and he starts thinking she really needs to be with her mum.
Huh.
So this particular night, he decides, I'm going to kill her. He goes and has a couple of scotches and he goes and gets a spear gun, and Gracie's in her cot and he fires the spear gun.
I think he always meant to kill Gracie, because don't forget, when he bought his spear gun, he bought 2 spears for it. He bought 2 spears. I think he was always planning on killing Gracie. I don't know exactly what he thought he was going to do afterwards. Maybe he bought that spear gun on a whim thing, you know, because he was annoyed one day and then obviously hadn't used it for a while. So maybe he thought he could, you know, be okay. But I personally think he planned to kill Gracie. I really do. Now, probably when he killed Anna, maybe he couldn't face it right there and then. But then the more he's thought about it, the more he's thought, well, Gracie's got to go as well. And probably after he spent a couple of days looking after her on his own, he realised that he didn't want to do that. That's too much effort. So, yeah, I personally think he always intended to kill Gracie.
Gun into her head, and that killed her.
How did John seem detailing this in the interview room?
Like he was saying what he'd had for breakfast that morning. That's what I mean. There was just no...
I noticed she glossed over the whole details of what happened to Gracie, which is probably good.
emotion. And then, as if that's not bad enough, he then puts her in a garbage bag and throws her out in the household rubbish.
So obviously, once you hear this extraordinarily disturbing confession, it's worst case scenario, but also, you know, at least then there's a clear path for the investigation. What comes next? How does attention then shift towards finding the bodies?
Well, through a series of phone calls and investigations, we find out that the rubbish is picked up from the house. It then goes to somewhere else, and it then goes down to a transfer station. And so we understand that the bodies will be at the transfer station in Toronto. And it was actually a huge operation order to work out where the bodies would be. The equipment was, I think it was costing something like $500,000 a day. It was huge because we were talking about 4 big, I think they called front-end loaders, or a big machine that digs out dirt and all that. I think it's a front-end loader. But who would ever think that a tip, a transfer station, would have probably the best record keeping I have ever seen? And what the bosses did was they went down to the Toronto transfer station and they sat down with management of the transfer station, and the transfer station records, it was like a grid. And so they could say, oh, from Prince Street, Mornington, that would have gone, and they could put it in, I don't know, say A29. And so it was still a big area, probably around, well, I don't know, maybe 100 metres by 100 metres, something like that. But they were able to pretty much establish that that's where they thought the bodies would probably be. And we were searching for 10 days. There was maybe 100 police involved in this search, and it was a huge search. We're looking for 2 blue bags. That was pretty much the description that John had given us, blue bags. So every blue bag that was found, you'd put your hand up, your whole team and the excavator would stop, you'd check to make sure that there was nothing in that bag, and then you'd keep going. So it stopped and started all the time. I never want to see a blue bag again. There were thousands of them. And the noise down there, it was windy, it was raining, it was cold, it was rat infested, it was asbestos ridden, so we had to have all these special suits on. And just one thing, oh my God, to go to the toilet, it was almost worth wetting yourself for because you had to go through the decontamination shower, you know, just to go to the toilet, and then you'd have to put on all this new stuff because of the asbestos. You'd have to put on.
What a horrible job, isn't it? What a horrible job searching a dump site. And this, of course, dump site has been searched in the Sebastian Rogers case, but nothing was found yet. But it just makes you see, when you hear this, you realise that the police take, I'm always knocking on about, but the police take so much stick, but the things that they do that go unsung, untalked about. Imagine going through a refuse tip, but they did it, they had to do it, and they got the results. Going through all that, but then finding Anna and Gracie, again, it's like another bittersweet moment, I would imagine.
New suits, new socks, new shoes. Oh my God. Anyway, 10th day, we get told the search is stopping tomorrow. We've given it our best shot and we haven't been able to find them. So the 11th day is the last day. Anyway, about, I don't know.
Yeah, because it only gets, they'll only give them so much resources, won't they, and so long to do it. I hope that hasn't happened in the Sebastian Rogers case, that the search has been called off, but he is actually there. I just hope, but that's it. Limited resources, these exercises, these investigations, they cost so much money. But anyway, this had I was going to say a happy ending. Obviously, it's not a happy ending, but it's a good resolution, let's say, that at least Anna and Gracie were found and laid to rest respectfully.
Mid-morning, 10 o'clock, something like that. I'm down in the depths, and as the excavator brought up a whole lot of rubbish, there was a blue bag in it, and it was just, I'm sorry, but just like any other bag there. So as you do, you stop everything, you go and look at the bag, have a look at, make sure. But this bag, I looked in it, I had to scramble up, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 metres of rubbish to get to the bag. I opened the bag and there was nothing in there apart from, I saw like a kitchen glove or something like that. So I said to keep going, and so I would start to walk back down the mound, and then I think to myself, that didn't seem right. I'll go back and have another look. And I went back and I opened the bag and I found an arm.
Oh.
And what I thought was the kitchen glove, it was an adult arm and hand.
Oh,
and I've thought about that since.
Oh my God. Thank God she went back. So she thought it was a rubber glove and it was actually Anna's hand. Oh my God, how do you recover from the trauma of that? But still, it's a good thing. She found her. Oh my God, how awful for her.
And I know this sounds bizarre, but it was almost like Anna was reaching out to me. That's how I felt, that she was.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, she's getting upset. I expect she was reaching up to you. I expect she was. Thank God she did.
Oh, I'm here. And so I stopped everything and I screamed at the top of my voice.
Oh, the dog's agreeing.
I put my arms up. It was like I was just elated. I think that's the only word I can use, because I knew that we had found Anna.
So much of this story and this investigation, it strikes me that it's this combination of the dread and the harrowing darkness met with this intense motivation and drive to find the bodies, to achieve justice for Anna and Gracie. These wins and that combination of devastation and elation for you working as a part of it. What was that like on that day you found her? Had you given up on thinking that you would? You know, day 11, every single time you see a blue plastic bag, you know, that constant feeling of hope being met with no, nothing, move along. What was that like for you?
You know, funny you say that, because this sounds bizarre, but I knew I'd find her. I was that determined to make sure that Anna wouldn't end her life in this smelly, rat-infested, disgusting tip. I just had this bizarre, unbelievable feeling. I just knew I'd find her. And you know what? I did.
Yeah, you did.
But when I did find her, as I said, I was just elated. And then the reality started to set in. And I remember we had to wait for crime scene. You know, everybody came over to me. We were all hugging. We were all jumping up and down. It was just a couple of minutes of pure elation.
Gosh, and you know, sort of weird, isn't it? Because it must have felt elation. This is what these bloody monsters make happen, that you're elated over finding a hand, you know, of this man's dead wife, because it is good, because it means that he is going to, you know, you have found her, she can be put to rest, and it's another brick in the wall, isn't it, of his prosecution. God, what a situation.
But then reality started to set in, that, oh my God, that means Gracie is really close by, or we assumed that Gracie was close by. And that thought of finding Gracie in that condition that we knew she probably would be was almost unbearable. But I know on that day when we found Anna, while we were waiting for crime scene, etc., which was probably maybe a good hour, I can remember sitting on something and I put my head in my hands and I just cried. But I was so embarrassed that I was upset, you know, showing my emotion, like not the elation. Isn't it funny? I was happy to share that, but the fact that I was so upset physically that people could see I was crying, I turned away. I was just embarrassed, a bit humiliated, to be honest. And I think,
oh, I mean, yeah, people are embarrassed about showing their feelings sometimes, and especially, I suppose, if you're in the police and you're supposed to keep a professional front. But, you know, I think people do respect raw emotions, you know, real emotions. People know, the public generally, they're not stupid. They know when someone's putting on an act and when someone isn't. And I do think people do respect people who are genuinely emotional about things, and we shouldn't feel embarrassed about our emotions. God, emotions are what set us apart from you know, bad people or from, you know, animals. You know, animals, some animals do show emotions. Some animals show more emotions than that twonk showed. But do you see what? That's what makes us humans. That's what makes us human beings. We should not be embarrassed about being emotional.
I think I cried for what Anna had endured, for Anna's family, for humanity as a whole, I suppose. But the thought of Gracie nearby, yeah, I will never forget what I just found. And I remember while we were waiting for crime scene, everybody left the scene and they went back up to the caravan where the cup of tea 200 was, what we call it, the canteen. And I didn't want to leave Anna. I stayed there. I didn't want to go and have a cuppa. And I remember a colleague saying to me, come on, Fraser, we're going up to have a coffee and wait for crime scene. And I said, no, I'm staying here with her. I just couldn't leave her again. You know, I couldn't leave her alone. A couple of days later.
Well, do you know what? That's really made me cry because that's so lovely. And I actually, when I was watching the video yesterday about Jessica and Holly, and when they found Jessica and Holly's body, you know, bodies, the Sower murders, the Ian Huntley thing, they found them quite late on in the day and they couldn't get the forensic team out that night, but people stayed with them. You know, police stayed with them, so they weren't alone there. And I've heard of that many, many times, of police doing things like that. You know, looking after people that they found, even though they're deceased, not treating them horribly, you know. So I know sometimes, I'm sure they do, there'll be some twonks that do. There's a lot of fuss about the recovery of Nicola Bully's body and the police laughing and joking and stuff. You know, and that is horrible because they have to treat, you know, these things with respect. But what I'm trying to say is we can't think that it's all police that do that. I mean, this woman, listening to her talk, you know, that she didn't want to leave Anna alone again there. Like, that is lovely. That is just so lovely. Really is. What a lovely person.
Later was lunchtime and we were, you know, we're all tired, but we all wanted to find Gracie so much, just for the family and for Gracie for that matter.
Oh, it would definitely give you a boost of adrenaline that once you've found Anna, you know, you might have been tired before that. And imagine that was the last day that they were allowed to search. Oh my God, how dispiriting to have gone through all those days and then the search would have to be called off and you hadn't found them. So of course, once they'd found Anna, that'd be it. They were, I mean, I'm presuming that once they found Anna, maybe they would have been given more time. I don't know, but that would really spur you on, wouldn't it? And all your tiredness would be forgotten. You'd just be like, come on now, let's find Gracie.
So I can remember walking back towards the caravan, and it was probably 200 or 300 metres, and it was really windy. All this rubbish was flying around, and a photo landed at the feet of, I don't know if it was me or somebody else, but the detective picked up the photo and said, does she look familiar to you? And she didn't, no. Anyway, I think it was Rocky, the detective sergeant, and I think someone showed him or Keno, and they said, that's Anna.
Gosh.
Like, we knew we were close because there were photos of Anna, and then as we kept picking up the photos, they were photos that had obviously been in a bag that John had discarded with Anna or with Gracie. And the following day is when they found Gracie, and I wasn't there.
Oh.
I'm relieved that I wasn't there because I think that may have tipped me over the edge.
Yeah, well, but do you know, that's like almost like, so they obviously were given an extra day then once found Anna. They were given at least an extra day. So I suppose once Anna was found, they were pretty sure that Gracie would be there as well. But imagine finding those photos. That sounds like a Hansel and Gretel trail, doesn't it? Leading to Gracie, you know. God. And then looking at that little girl there now on this photo. Wow. The hate for this man. I can't you know, I can't rein it in. I hate him so much. And, you know, I always try and forgive, you know, I do believe in forgiveness and stuff like that. But this little girl, I can't forgive him for what he did to her or to Anna.
The dedication of everyone involved in this investigation has been well documented and commended, and it saw John sentenced to 2 consecutive terms of life imprisonment in 2005. Why do you think this case resonated with not just investigators, but
Yeah, but with only minimum of 33 years. Now, I know he's unlikely to get out, to be fair, but you know, he can apply for parole after 33 years. That really surprised me that you kill your wife and your 20-month-old daughter, well, your pregnant wife and your 20-month-old daughter, and you why is it not proper life imprisonment? I honestly, that just baffles me, but I don't think he'll ever get out.
the community more broadly as well in such a way?
I think firstly because it involves a young, innocent child. It also involves a beautiful mum who did nothing but, you know, bring one little girl into the world and was about to bring another baby into the world. And I don't think any of us can sort of understand how somebody could do that to anyone, let alone their wife and their little baby. I think it's got to be just the innocence was taken away so cruelly, but particularly with little Gracie, like with a little girl. You know, she had nothing to do with it. Like, as I said, I understand John had his issues with Anna. Why doesn't he just walk away? Why would you have to do what he did and not just move?
Yeah, why did he not just divorce her? Maybe he thought she would not divorce him because of her religious inclinations or whatever. But she couldn't have stopped him from walking away, for fuck's sake. Sorry, excuse my French. But she couldn't have stopped him from walking away. He could have walked away. He could have walked out that door, gone back to his parents. Instead, he chose to do this. That's a choice he made. He bought the gun specifically, the spear gun.
Murder them, like just torture them, really. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of at a loss for words.
Okay, so
Thanks to Narelle.
there you go. A very sad story. I hope you're okay because, you know, I hope it hasn't triggered anyone. It is a sad story at the end of the day. It's a very, very sad story. But it needs to be told, and we need to always remember Annie and Gracie, they're together. That's how I sort of like to imagine them, like this, like cuddling each other, you know. And of course, the other baby that's was never got a chance to live at all. Hopefully, in the afterlife, they're all there together. That's what I would hope. Definitely would hope. Okay, so now I think you maybe understand why this is, for me, out of the 5 cases that I'm going to look at of these family annihilators, this John Myles Sharpe is the absolute worst for me. Just is the worst. Because he didn't even do it because, you know, because he had another woman or he'd fallen in love with someone else or he didn't have financial issues. He just did it because he was fed up of being married and having a child. And he didn't want the new child. You know, it's not even a proper reason. You know, it's just not that any of the reasons are reason enough, but some of them you can think, oh well, you know, he had all, you know, that the Todd family murders, he had $100,000 of debt or whatever. He was just about to lose the house. I think he definitely had some mental health issues as well. But with this, you just I can't be asked anymore. I know, Tia, can't be asked anymore. Yeah. She loves to get. You love to get on the camera a bit, don't you? You love to get on the camera a bit. Oh, bless. She's so beautiful. This dog. She's so sweet. Okay, so that's it. I'll see you. Oh, that was her. It wasn't me. You just put in the camera. Look, she looks really abashed. Well, there you go. That'll make you laugh. You need a laugh at the end of that horrible story. Oh my God, she just literally burped. Honestly, that wasn't me. Oh my God. What you like. Honestly, can't take you anywhere. I know I'm nearly finished now. She's like, look, I'm fed up of you doing that. I want some attention. Can't take her anywhere. So more tea, Vicar. More tea, Vicar. Oh. Okay, so I want to just say, so rest in peace to Anna and Gracie. Hope you're together, and prayers and love to all the family, except him, obviously. And the next case we're going to cover in this series, I still can't believe she just burped, but it did put a smile on her face for the end. So the next one is Christian Longo, which I didn't know an awful lot about this case. So we're going to look at the case of Christian Longo, another twonk who decided to murder his family. So she's undoing all the wires now and everything. I think it gets to a point where she tries to tell me, look, I'm sick of you doing that video. Come and give me some attention. Come and play with me. So I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Bye. Oh, don't forget to like. Thank you. Bye. And subscribe. Bye.